Melissa Melton and Aaron Dykes here for Truthstream Media.
Hey everybody.
Hey, just a couple of days ago, this report came out, and it was all over the place. Obscene wealth. World's 85 richest have the same wealth as 3.5 billion poorest. Essentially, the 85 richest people in the world have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of the entire global population.
And this is the same trend we've seen for a while, but now it's accelerated so much that it's not the richest 1% have the amount of the poorest half of the world. It's the richest 85 individuals have as much as the poorest half of the entire world.
The entire globe. I mean, that's mind-blowing. Well, almost, I guess, predictably, the same day this comes out, Bill and Melinda Gates decide to write this missive, which appeared in the Wall Street Journal, 3 myths on the world's poor. And they go through these myths. This is written by them. Myth 1 is that poor countries are doomed to stay poor. Myth 2, he says foreign aid is a big waste. That's a myth. See, of course, foreign aid is great. We have to go out into Africa. We have to go out into the desert. We have to give them GMO and vaccines because that's what they need. They don't need clean water and hygiene, things like that. No, they need GMO and vaccines.
Yeah, just look up Warren Buffett's his son's whole thing about conscience laundering. Bill Gates' entire philanthropy depends upon starting these expensive initiatives that they then expect foreign aid and local countries' money to pay for.
Yeah.
It's not even real charity.
Isn't that wonderful? Conscience laundering. Anyway, myth 3 is the one that really stuck out to me, though. Saving lives leads to overpopulation.
Saving lives.
And Bill and Melinda start talking about Thomas Malthus and how people are worried about doomsday scenarios with the food supply can't keep up with the population. But he's saying that if more children survive, parents will have smaller families, so family planning is really the answer to overpopulation. And then he goes on to say, consider Thailand. Around 1960, child mortality started going down. Then around 1970, after the government invested in a strong family planning program, birth rates started to drop. In the course of just 2 decades, Thai women went from having 6 children on average to just 2. Today, child mortality in Thailand is almost as low as it is in the U.S., and Thai women have an average of 1.6 children. I want to show you this chart. This is the birth rate chart for Thailand. This starts in 1960, and this shows you this is going beyond, probably about to 2010. I mean, that looks like a water slide. It's just going straight downhill.
Saving lives.
And this is the old joke about reducing poverty by reducing the number of poor people. It's exactly the kind of thing this is, and mind you, this has all been paid for and pushed by foreign aid, paid by U.S. taxpayers, and pushed on these third world countries just to bring their numbers down. And at first, sure, it's to reflect the fact that there's less child mortality than there used to be, but now it's not even that. They're not just having enough children to get by, they're not even having enough children to replace themselves or even work in factories.
Exactly. 1.6 is below replacement rate. Replacement rate, just to keep the population stable, would be 2 children per woman. And now you see Asia, all of these countries have below replacement rate levels for birth rate. And here's a story right here. This Asian nation faces a growing crisis from aging. And they're talking about Thailand. Because now the birth rate is so low, they're not replacing themselves, and the population is aging. They have more elderly and older people than they do working class. And so they don't have a population that's stable that can take care of itself.
Well, yeah, and that's where you see the kind of children of men scenario where when people stop having children, the economy bottoms out, and the only result that you can have is a really controlling government or an outright police state. There's no children to take care of the parents, and there's no one fulfilling these jobs. There's no one producing things. It's not a good scenario for a future world. It's actually becomes a nightmare. We thought the problem was overpopulation, but it's actually becoming the reverse, believe it or not.
Yeah, Singapore is down to 1.2. That's their fertility rate. I mean, they're not going to be able to replace themselves. And right here, this guy's even saying Thailand's aging demographic is very serious, and there's a sense that this is not being discussed at the policy level, and this is really important. It's a really bad deal. And here's Bill Gates over here conscience laundering in the Wall Street Journal, myths about the poor, talking about how great it is that Thailand's women have an average of 1.6 children. I mean, remember, this is the same guy who said we should cut the last 3 months of care for your grandmother so we can save 10 teachers' jobs.
So the access that used to be available to the middle class or whatever is just rapidly going away. That's a trade-off society is making because of very, very high medical costs and a lack of willingness to say, you know, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better not to lay off those 10 teachers? That's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Yeah, well, why should we save Granny if we could save 10 teachers? I mean, it's all about saving lives. The rhetoric from this guy is incredible, and these windbag billionaires have never been elected to anything, remember that. But they continue to be more and more in the business of global policy. They're trying to dictate things well outside of the electoral structure, well outside of the Constitution. They literally get together at their billionaire club meetings with David Rockefeller and Bill Gates and people like Ted Turner and George Soros and try to tell the rest of the world how it's going to be.
I mean, this is insane. They're actually saying here that the richest people now are posing a threat to human progress. And I would say that's true when you have Bill Gates applauding countries for falling below their replacement rates.
Saving lives. Talk about a parasite class that's taken over. It's just money's an illusion. It's just they've gotten control.